What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into the Bear With Us podcast. I am Frank. Joining with me is Nas. Nas, how we feeling, man?
Summertime vibes, baby.
Yeah,
Let's go.
and it has been hot as all hell and humid these
Really?
last few days.
Yeah, it's been crazy.
Yeah, it's been extremely nuts. Well, listeners, we're doing a little something different today. There's like literally nothing to talk about Bears related. Main focus of the podcast here is, well, let me say this, because the main focus was supposed to be ranking like the 2000s running backs, and I sort of isolated 2000 to like 2010. So if you went beyond that, that's even better. But what wound up happening, Nas, is I sort of made two different lists because there was just no way for me to rank like 1 through 20 or 15, whatever. And I was like, who were some guys that I think would really fit today's era or potentially be better in today's era? And who were some guys that like just would be, I don't want to say like not rostered, but like not nearly as effective because they needed like 30 touches a game, to get that done. And that's just not a thing anymore. Did you find yourself doing something similar as you were looking at this?
I mean, honestly, there was dudes who like popped out. I was like, I honestly have never heard of this guy.
I know. There was like three Cincy running backs.
Dude, there's just one running back that he was a catch specialist, and I've never heard of him. And it's probably because the tail end of his career is like early 2000s, so he's mainly a 90s running back guy. But dude's got a 99 catch season under his belt.
That's
in
insane.
The 90s. Yeah, I was just like, who are you?
Yeah, I'm trying to find who it was now. There was another, it was like, there was like 2 or 3 Cincinnati running backs that I had never heard of. And they had like 1,400 rushing yards, 1,300 rushing. I was like, who the fuck are these guys? But granted, like, since he was really bad when we were younger, so it's probably makes sense that I didn't really know who they were. I'm trying to find the name now. I'll find it as we go. Anyway,
imagine Corey Dillon was one of the 3.
No, I know
right?
Corey Dillon. Corey Dillon was nice. It was someone who I swear to God I've never heard of. Corey Dillon was one of the Cincy guys, though, but there was another dude. I'm trying to see if I can quickly find him. Whatever. Before we get into that, though, and sort of let the conversation goes where it goes, Nas, I know we want to talk a little bit about Trevor Lawrence and his new contract. I think that brings up sort of thoughts, a lot of them. So talk to me, Nas. How are we feeling about it?
Okay, my initial reactions were, okay, huge overpay. Those were my initial reactions. Then I was just like, well, it's Jacksonville. Like, what are they going to do? Like, they're going to start over again because they don't think the guy's worth it. So it's like, and he's played 3 years. One of those years, he looked great. He really did. Like, he was tracking for something. It's like, okay, if we could pull that out of him, this deal will be fine. And then I thought I went from too much, bad deal. Then I went from okay deal. Now I'm in the decent deal territory.
Yeah.
I've progressed. And the reason why is because this contract extension, throughout its entirety, Trevor Lawrence never takes up more than 14% of the salary cap. Okay. That is a huge advantage if he hits, because guys like Dak, guys like Daniel Jones are taking up something in like the 20s because
Jesus.
of like because of like great negotiation by their agents, and then the terrible posturing by the franchises. And then I'm pretty sure Kyler is somewhere in there as well. In the 20s. And so that's just like really, I mean, it kills your team from a building perspective. And then you got to hit on your drafts and all that. It's like, what Jalen Hurts' cap hit this year is? It's like at 6%.
Oh, that's not bad at all.
Yeah. It's like, well, he's the most important player on the team. So like, I'm feeling like if you're 15% or under as the most important guy on the team, not the worst thing. So I've gone from bad deal, okay deal, decent deal.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. What about you?
So I didn't really think of it in terms of like what was good or what was bad. The first thing that I thought of was the thing that you mentioned, like even if it was a bad deal, what the fuck else are they going to do? Like, this guy clearly isn't bad enough to just completely move on from. He's not a Mitch Trubisky. He's not one of those like draft busts. He has his flaws, but he's very clearly highly talented and still very young and is developing. But the second thought that I had was like, when are we going to get away from, because it was the same conversation that people had about Justin Fields of like, well, if you keep him, you got to pay him $40 million. Why is that the standard right now for young quarterbacks that need a contract? Like, when are we going to move to the point where it's like, okay, you're clearly not a top echelon guy, but we still believe in you. Here's a non-disrespectful offer to like, so we can still build around you and continue to develop you. And if you make it there, then you get the 250 million. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, when did we just leap that phase? I don't quite understand.
I think the markets just got out of hand.
Yeah.
And the salary cap keeps going up. So the numbers just keep getting ridiculous. Like Tua's going to get like a pretty crazy deal.
Yes.
In a second. But again, it's all about the structuring of that deal. If you can structure it in a way where you like, I hope Poles looked at that Lawrence deal and like kind of model something like, I hope that's like the model he's going for. Like you got to find those loopholes where you're paying certain money in certain calendar years and so you can not freaking plummet your team in terms of building because all the money's going to one guy. So
yeah. I mean, when you're talking about paying your quarterback 25% of the salary cap, I mean, that's the one thing that I think
crazy.
It's nuts, but it's the one thing that everyone applauded Brady for was like legitimately taking pay cuts of like, we need this team to stick around to some degree. I'm going to continue to, and a lot of times it wasn't necessarily pay cuts. It was like converting it into a signing bonus. So he still was getting the money, but it was just getting it off the salary cap. And I'm curious to see how they continue to do it because I feel like we find ourselves being, and this is a weird example, but it's the only one that I can think of off the top of my head, but you go from like, a rookie with some promise, and I think it's someone like Gardner Minshew, not highly touted out of college by any means, but like, hey, we may have something here, right? And he winds up not being that guy, but now it's like, okay, well, we'll just pay him this sort of low-tier, mid-tier starter money and see if he's still got a little something. It's like, that's probably what should have happened not only with him, but like with quite a few guys before. Like it seems like people with talent go from like, all right, we need to give him the 50 mil, and then they didn't fail, and then like no, watch when they move on from Daniel Jones and he gets like a $14 million deal, and you're like, that's a fucking nice discount for a solid backup. Like why? I just still, it feels like we're missing a space here for these guys.
The Daniel Jones deal is like reprehensible. Like,
oh yes,
it's so like horrific that like I don't even know. I still can't process it. I was like, how did we come to terms with that number and say, yeah, that's okay, he's worth it? Guy hasn't thrown 26 touchdowns in a season.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's also, I just sort of harken back. You're almost like doubling down on your mistake, because even when he was drafted, I just didn't see it with the guy. It was like, what is special about him? I feel like when you're drafting in the top 10, you're looking for a quarterback. You're either getting someone for the resume. You think of someone like Tebow. He was later, but like he maybe not had the best tape. He wasn't very good, but the resume was there. So maybe there's something. Or like, here's this super high ceiling that we can like physical tools are there. The sort of the traits guy. And it was like, he was like none of them. Like, and people know who've listened, and probably you at this point as well, Nas, like, I fucking hate Zach Wilson. Like the hype that he got coming out of college was so absurd to me. But at the very least, I was like, okay, I see the big arm. I see some of the traits that people see. But like with Daniel Jones, it was like none of that. And it was like this, like the Giants like him because he's nice and he could be the next potential Eli Manning. But Eli Manning had traits too. Like, what are we talking? His whole situation was very weird from day one to me.
Super weird. And they also they didn't want to like let go of the idea that they could be wrong about the guy, so they saw like a bias confirming season from him from 1 year, and they're like, see, like there is something here, let's pay him.
But the funny thing was, though, the bias confirming season still wasn't, it was like barely an NFL average year. Yeah, it was like they just unlocked his legs a little bit more because he is a solid athlete, but like yeah, it wasn't like, oh my god, like he hit 4,200 yards, like he just hit these. It was like, it was
crazy.
They are a really fucking mess, man. They are an absolute mess. But no, I mean, to your biggest point, we are, I think, the one thing that we've said about Ryan Poles is, it's very easy to tear down a roster and then sort of raise the floor a little bit because you're just getting younger guys who are fresher and blah blah blah. I think now is like where the real GM work. I think it started this offseason. You're getting the quarterback of your liking. You're really building them around him. Now we're going to see the more savviness with contracts, with things. Because again, it's easy to clean up a mess to a degree. It's Khalil Mack's making way too much money. Let's unload him and get what we can get salary cap off. Like that isn't the hardest part of the job. The hardest part now is building something and sustaining it. So to your point, I am very curious come year 3 or 4 when Caleb's got 2 or 3 rings, you know, how much are you going to pay the guy and what's going to happen?
That made me chuckle. That was good. That was good.
Nas, let us dive right into the running back exercise. I know we're a little bit pressed for time. This will be a shorter episode, but it's okay because I'm excited about it. Some of the fucking names on this list, dude. I just like, it was like a flashback of, or like an adrenaline rush of my childhood that I saw. I mean, just looking at like Jamal Lewis, haven't heard that name in years. Warwick Dunn, and here's the guy. Just a spoiler, who was on my list, who I think would have been phenomenal in this era, Amon Green. I know he was a Packer, and we fucking hate the Packers, but he was phenomenal to watch when I was a kid. I really enjoyed watching him play. Guys like Clinton Portis, even. I forgot Tiki Barber existed. Like, dude, just seeing these fucking names, I was going over the rushing leaders and like remembering, you know, watching some highlights along the way. It was fun. I really enjoyed putting this list together. But like I said in the beginning, I don't know what route you want to go. We can almost make it at random, but what I went into this episode thinking like, all right, I can get like a list of 20 dudes and sort of rank them 1 through 20. And in my mind, I was like, all right, I'm already, you know, guys like fucking Adrian Peterson would be very high on the list. Guys like LaDainian Tomlinson. But then as I went by, I was like, dude, how the hell do I even separate like a Priest Holmes and a Sean Alexander? Like I'm not doing this. I just want to sort of have a fun episode where we talk. But I did sort of make 2 lists of guys who I think would have been phenomenal or potentially even better today, and guys who, you know, really wouldn't have. So I don't know if you want to go that direction or like what you had in mind, but I'm willing to like freeball this whole thing because I just had so much fun looking at these names.
I just looked at dudes that I thought would like just transcend time and like be awesome.
I love it.
I didn't really rank them, just dudes who were my favorite to watch and that I thought could really do well if they were trusted to do more.
I'm with it. So that sort of falls in line with my list of guys who I think would have, you know, still been elite or very good in today's era. So I mean, I think we can just start reeling off some names. Who was on that list for you?
I mean, I'm partial. I loved the U as a kid. So, one's a no-brainer. I think Edgerrin James, without a doubt, would have dominated this era with no doubt.
Yep.
And we're going not on the obvious guys. Like everyone knows LT would. Like he would play really well in this era. Like I think we all know that. I love Clinton Portis in this era. I think Warwick Dunn, if used in the receiving game,
yes,
would have crushed
Warwick
in this era.
Warwick and Edge were my first names when I started making this list. Like these are the 2 that would be insane. Like Warwick Dunn would be Alvin Kamara, I think, in this era.
And I loved Deuce McAllister, dude.
Deuce
I was
good.
obsessed with that guy. I drafted him every year in Madden in like my creative team. I freaking love that dude. And I think Steven Jackson, maybe the most underrated career of anybody in the 2000s.
I agree.
And I think he would raise some hell in this era.
You know what?
Yeah, go ahead.
A guy that we talked like that. We know Marshall Faulk, LT, those dudes, they're dominating any fucking era. Just how well-rounded that they were. A guy who was a little bit later, though, you know, bears bias a bit. I would have loved Matt Forte in this era in a real offense. Could you imagine?
Yeah. Totally.
That would be.
He had the exact right skill set for this era.
Yep.
Without a doubt.
Yep. And another guy, I'm surprised you didn't bring him up going down your list, because this was a dude who he was very high on my list as well, thinking about like playing in this era. Brian Westbrook, because we texted quickly before this episode. I mean,
yeah.
My goodness, he was built for this like open air raid type of thing. He would have been great.
Yeah, I mean, I could just imagine him getting like lost, running like, you know, those pre-snap motions and like people losing track of him and just going crazy.
Yeah, 100%. I also started to think in this vein though of guys who like from this era. Could you imagine Derrick Henry was built for the 2000s? I legitimately think, I'm not saying he's necessarily more talented than some of these guys. What I'm saying is, I think he would have ran for like 2,200 yards in a season. If you give that guy 40 carry, I mean, he's damn near getting it now in like a pass-heavy league. But if you legitimately give him 40 carries, fuck, dude, that would have been insane.
That's a great point. I actually didn't think about the inverse.
Yeah,
but my brain might travel that way while we keep going through this
100%.
list.
Nas, can I tell you a guy? We talked about LT. We talked about Marshall Faulk, Adrian Peterson is great in any era as well. He couldn't catch as well, but he would have been AP, any era. This is a guy, he may have been, you put him in today's era, he may be the best running back in the league right now. Priest Holmes. You toss him in this bucket with his receiving ability, with his running ability, he was fucking incredible.
Can I bring someone up that probably didn't come across your list?
Oh, yes, please.
Okay, so I just wanted to see who caught the most balls in a season from the running back spot. Do you know who Larry Centers was?
No.
Okay, started in 1990, didn't get a lot of playing time, and then eventually he played for the Cardinals, and then got hit like a real shot in 1992, and then in 1995 he caught 101 balls.
Holy shit!
And then backed it up in 96 with 99 balls caught. I was just like, whoa, this dude was like playing in the wrong era. And I was just like, this guy would have been like that late round fan in a PPR league. Like you pick him and you get like all those extra bonus points for those small catches. Like he never got over 1,000 yards, but he got to like 962 one year.
That's insane.
Like,
I mean, it's
like over 1,200 yards from scrimmage. Like that's an impactful player.
Yeah, I would be curious to watch some of his film just to see like how much did they ever break him out, because like you think about receiving running backs from back then. Imagine like just putting LT in a slot just to run a couple crossing routes a game. Like
Right.
These dudes who could really receive the ball. Like thinking of someone like him, like that was probably all dump offs out of the backfield, him making plays with the ball in his hand.
Totally. I mean, like this guy puts Darnell Mooney to shame, and he's playing running back. Like I'm no joke. 77 balls, 101 balls, 99 balls, 54 balls, 69 balls, 69 balls, 81 balls, 80 balls.
That's fucking insane.
Catching balls, like, and I've never even heard of this dude. Like, pretty crazy.
Yeah,
pretty.
That's nuts. I finally found the name of the Cincinnati running back. Have you ever heard of Rudy Johnson?
Yes, I've heard of Rudy Johnson.
Never heard of the guy.
Okay, but I couldn't pick him out of the lineup.
No,
but I just remember. Yeah, I remember Rudy.
Rudi Johnson, and he's just his career. I mean, it's 1,400 yards, 1,300. Then it looks like he has an injury. Just 3 straight 1,400 yard seasons.
Yeah.
Now don't remember a lick of this guy. Granted, he was on Cincy though. Like I said, it was tough to keep up with him, especially post Corey Dillon when he went to New England.
Yep.
Yeah. So. Yeah, that was so. Some of these names I was like, I remembered most, and there was just a few that I was like, I don't remember you in the slightest. Dude, you know who's a guy who I think would be really fucking good in this era? I was hoping you would bring him up. This feels like a Nas guy, and I may be stealing your thunder, and I'm sorry if I am. I'll just throw it right to you. Ricky Williams in today's NFL. Oh my God,
this is so me. Yeah,
it's so you.
I loved Ricky, dude. I loved Ricky. I loved the way he ran. Such a great athlete, could have absolutely dominated this era. Like not a huge like weed, not the same connotation around weeds. Like if he smoked weed, it probably would have been cool. Like he would have been all right. And he would have stayed in the league. Oh my God, can you imagine him in a pass catching offense? He would have wrecked teams single-handedly.
Yeah.
Put him in the Gurley spot on the Rams. Oh my God. Are you kidding me? What a joke.
That's sort of the role. That's the role I envision Priest Holmes having is Todd Gurley. He was so fucking good. And I almost feel like, because I guess this sort of kicks off my list of guys who I don't think would have been all that great in today's era. They were like made for that era. But like, I think Larry Johnson almost like stole that thunder, because it went right from Priest Holmes being incredible to them like drafting Larry Johnson whenever they did, and him just also being incredible. So it was like, I've even had people like mix them up when we're talking about like pass running backs. Like, holy shit, that was 2 people. They just remember like a Kansas City running back going crazy, and it's so funny.
Well, that O-line sent like 3 dudes to the Hall of Fame. That group was crazy.
Yeah, but Larry was certainly on that list of guys who was like, I probably wouldn't do much. Another dude who was like, I mean, this dude to me is like the epitome of that era was Sean Alexander. I mean, just huge. I mean, 6'1", 6 feet, whatever, 250 or whatever the fuck he was. I mean, that's kind of Derrick. I think that's what Derrick Henry would have been. I just don't think Sean Alexander had that top end speed that Derrick does.
Nah.
But he just like embodied that era. But I don't think he needed the ball. Like, he needed 25 carries a game to really be effective.
Kind of feel that way about Thomas Jones too.
Thomas Jones is on that list. Yep.
Thomas Jones definitely on that list. Who else was on that list?
You know what was
we haven't even mentioned Reggie, and like he got drafted in 06, and like his career kind of overlapped the aughts and the teens, and the tens. But Reggie was made for this era of football without a doubt. I don't even know if Reggie would stay at running back. Like I truly wonder, like, would they put him at receiver? Like,
yeah.
Like he was that good of a route runner. He was that shifty.
Yeah.
Like, he could have been a slot guy.
He easily could have been, or at least thinking of like, who was they were called the Redskins then, I'm not just using it, but the Redskins running back. He was a little bit smaller, scat back type of guy. He always dealt with injuries, but when he was healthy, he was phenomenal. That would have been Reggie, but on steroids, I think. And I'm blanking on what his name is right now. I had him in a few fantasy leagues. He won me quite a few games, his rookie and second year, and then he like tore his ACL or something. That's gonna bother me. I can't think of it, but that would be, yeah, Reggie in today's league. Oh my god, that would
Sproles would have been nice in this league.
Yep. Yep. Agreed. A guy that I'm curious what you think of, because in some of this I had to look at stats to like confirm what I remembered. I thought Curtis Martin was a better catcher of the football than I think he really was. He was not at all. Like, his receiving numbers were a lot lower than what I remember.
Yeah, I loved Curtis Martin.
I did too.
But yeah, I don't think I think he was in the right era for that guy.
Yeah, another guy, same exact thing. Eddie George, under fucking rated, by the way. Incredible running back, but I think
Eddie George was like scary, dude.
Yes.
Yeah, prime Eddie George was pretty crazy. I liked Eddie, but I think Eddie was fit for that era. Truly.
Oh no, totally agreed. I totally agree. There was another one that sort of embodied the era as well, was Fred Taylor, just a fucking bruiser. And like, but part of me is like, when does the pendulum switch back, if it does ever? Like, I feel like we're in need of a Fred Taylor type of dude in today's NFL.
Yeah, I wonder like who's gonna take the torch from Derek. Like what team is gonna commit? It'll probably be Vrabel's next team. Yeah, to be honest.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong at all. But you just think like, I feel like pendulums swing when it really becomes an advantage, and I don't know how far off we are from that. You look at like the average NFL linebacker size, and this isn't me downing today's linebackers. They're still phenomenal linebacker play, but you look at that era. The linebackers and running backs sort of molded each other, right? But so you saw these big Ray Lewis's, Brian Urlacher's, just big fucking dudes. Even Zach Taylor, Miami Dolphins. There was who was the dude on the Jaguars? Pugsy, whatever. Like, just these big bruising guys. So you had to have running backs and fullbacks that were willing to take on those hits. Now with things being faster, these dudes are leaner. You look at even like the Bears linebacker core, one of the best in the league, but they look like safeties to me. Like, my eyes tell me that's a 2000 safety right there. Like, they're just, Edmonds isn't as big. He's a lankier dude. Like, to me, you can, if you can commit to it and do it the right way, commit to someone, you get like a Sean Alexander, a Fred Taylor type of dude, because they're going to run these guys over. Like,
I mean, how many inside linebackers, like, can you even name right now? Like, Fred Warner.
Yep.
Roquan Smith.
Yep. Patrick Queen.
Tremaine Edmonds. Like, the list isn't like long of like dudes that are like game changers.
Yep.
So it's like that, which tells me people are moving away from that because I know the money's rushing on the edge, or getting in the secondary, and then like that means, and teams aren't prioritizing that position as much, because there's other priorities on the defense. So yeah, I mean, I don't know when it's going to swing back. I feel like there's going to be a teams that at least try it. You got to zag at some point, but the way it's happening, like, I don't know, man, it just feels like every rule that comes out just makes it easier to throw the ball. So it's,
I know. No, I totally agree. And it's also, there's this weird thing, and I've seen this discourse, and I totally agree with it, by the way, because people were sort of talking about like the differences between the 2000s and today's, and even like 90s, and like, what is like, the question was like, what do we always talk about like how things have advanced. What is like this, if anything, what is scaled back? And they were like, interior offensive line play is absolutely the worst it's ever been, just league wide, because everyone's so focused on tackles that they're just sort of like putting together whatever on the interior. And I almost feel that way about linebackers too, to what we're talking about. Like there's dudes, there's a few, but like the last guy that I think of that was like truly game changing in this league, you correct me if there was one sooner, that was Luke Kuechly. Think about like what he did, and the San Francisco he retired way too fucking Patrick Willis. Those are the two I was like, these guys are the fucking next mold of linebackers. They both retired earlier, like, fuck this shit. We don't want CTE. And then like since then there isn't, I mean, there's been very good ones. Again, I'm not trying to downplay them, but it's just the importance of the position seems to be on its way down.
Well, I mean, think about like what these dudes are awesome at. Like, it's not really about like shedding blocks and like getting in there. It's like their sideline to sideline speed and like their coverage ability. It's like, you know, it's what teams are dictating, and that's what makes them special. Okay, I got a prompt for you.
Oh, I'm ready for it.
Are you ready? Okay. Start, bench, cut. CMC, LT, Marshall Faulk. Go.
Well, I'm just writing them down. So start. I got it. I mean, I got to start Marshall Faulk, dude. I feel like I have to. But then, like CMC and LT, I've been saying this since like year 2 of CMC that he is LT reincarnated. Like he just played, they're the exact same player. But I'd be remiss to tell you, like I by starting Faulk, I've already bypassed my bias. I had a powder blue LT jersey growing up, dude. That was one of the first non-Chicago jerseys I ever wore. I gotta cut CMC. I'm sorry.
Damn. Oh my god.
I'm sorry. You could probably make the case that CMC is better, but LT was a fucking dog.
Dude, yeah, I mean, woo. Yeah, it's a tough one. I think this might be like a coward's way out, but I think I'm doing the same, and I'm taking CMC out because the dude's injury history a little crazier than the other two.
That's fair as well.
You know, like had a couple seasons, just didn't play at all in the middle there. So it's like, well, if I'm going to cut one of those three, and Marshall, oh my God. Like, I'm so glad we did this because you forget how great these guys are.
I know.
Like, truly forget. Marshall, dude, he had over 2,200 yards from scrimmage 3 times in a row, and would have had a fourth, but he missed it by 50 yards. That's like pretty much unassailable. Like, yeah. I bet you we would be very hard pressed to find anybody who did that.
No, he would be. I stand by. He would be today's best running back. He was doing that in a run-heavy league. What he was receiving it. I mean, he would be, and he was fucking doing. He was a 3-down back. Like he was. There wasn't, hey, here's our third down scat back. He is our third down back.
It's legit. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Like when you get down and look at it, and then and the whole thing, like everybody knew he was getting the ball.
Yes.
Didn't matter.
Yes.
Didn't matter.
And but you also think about the greatest show on turf. He's also competing with 2 of the best receivers of that era as well for fucking touches. Put him in an offense with 1 less receiver, and my fucking God, those numbers shoot up.
Yeah, seriously, dude.
It's nuts.
It's pretty crazy.
And you know what's crazy, though? So there's 2 things from that, and then I came up with the one as well, a sit, start, bench. But the Marshall Faulk, I don't think it's brought up enough in the, like, I mean, almost like the GOAT conversation, like the Walter Payton, the Barry Sanders. Like, he was as good as those guys. He was fucking insane. And I feel like I mean, this whole era is sort of underrated, but him in particular... Someone I think would look at us crazy if we said he would be the best running back in today's era. They would think we're stupid, I think. Because that's how underrated he is.
Yeah, I think you put him in this era and like you can't tackle anybody, can't touch anybody. Guy would be fine. He would be just fine, and we'd be talking about him every year in fantasy and pretty crazy. I mean, I think he's the last non-quarterback to win the MVP, right?
There was one more.
Did
It was
Sean
like
Alexander win it?
he did, yeah, in like '04. That was the
Okay.
one I had it jotted down. My notes are so sloppy putting this all together. I was just trying to get things down. He was Sean Alexander was the last one.
Wow, crazy.
Yeah, he had like 1,800 yards rushing, and I want to say like 200 or 300 yards receiving that year.
I think he broke the touchdown record that year too.
Oh, I think you're, but and then LT shortly after was the one who broke it like 3-4 years later, and he didn't win MVP that year.
I don't know. Now we got to fact check this.
I know, now we got to fact, because that just sort of unlocked. I wasn't particularly looking for it for MVPs and things. I just saw it when I was looking at stats on Pro Football Reference that Alexander got one.
Okay, Marshall Falk 2000, Sean Alexander 05, LT 06, Adrian Peterson.
Oh, that's right. When he was like 9 yards away from breaking the record. Yeah.
And then anybody we didn't name in that era was a quarterback.
Yep, sounds about right.
I forgot Rich Gannon.
Richie, little underrated, a little sidearm action. Mark Trestman, extension of the run game.
Came out as a free safety, walked out as a quarterback who wins an MVP.
I did not know he came in as a free safety. That is fucking insane.
Dude did not play quarterback.
That is nuts. I didn't know that.
I could be wrong.
No, you could be completely correct. I don't know much about Rich Gannon. I just remember watching him as a kid with that sidearm throw that was always captivating to me. Another thought that I had, though, from your prompt, this is how much less important the running back position is today. I remember this shit like it was yesterday, because, again, LT was my favorite player. And I remember the discourse that there was a playoff game that the Chargers were in that LT, he got hurt. I forget exactly what happened, but the injury didn't look crazy. So there was sort of question in his heart. What the fuck is this guy doing? Is he soft? And he, I think he was sort of trying to hide his face, and he like had the little winter gear on, had the visor on, so no one could really see him. They're like, that's not even fucking him. Like and like this whole discourse is that we only hear that about quarterbacks now, but that's how important running backs were then. That him being out of the game, the Chargers had no shot, and they lost the game, but they just had no shot with him out. Like that was the whole, on the talk shows, the actual commentators during the game, they were just going nuts. When I think of LT and I think of the importance of the running back position then compared to now, it's like, okay, DeAndre Swift is hurt for a playoff game. All right, well, here's our second string running back that isn't that much worse. Like they're all just sort of the same in today's era, outside of like a CMC, the top dudes. But yeah, that's very funny. All right, here's mine. Start, sit, cut. Adrian Peterson, Priest Holmes, Edgerrin James.
All right. All right, I'm going to start AP. I'm going to sit Edge.
Oh.
And I'm cutting who's the third guy?
Priest Holmes.
Oh yeah, I'm cutting Priest. Okay. So this is a great debate. I think Priest Holmes is like one of the most overrated.
Really? Just because of O-line play?
The O-line play was great. And even with that O-line, if you just like look at like pure explosives, dude did not have a lot of breakaway runs over like 25 yards. It was just like, guy wasn't getting touched.
Yeah.
Till he got like a yard past the line. Think he's a little overrated. Great player, little overrated. I'm not gonna lose sleep cutting him.
Yeah.
Off of those two. AP, like the guy, everybody knows who's getting the ball. Guy is still busting 75-yard runs. It's crazy.
And he to me was the closest thing to Barry Sanders because of that. It wasn't ever consistent. It was like a 1 yard here, -3 here, 65-yarder, 5 yards here, 2 yards there, 73. And that was the same thing. It wasn't ever like a consistent 5 or 6 like chunk yards. It was just these huge splash plays where it's like, keep giving him the ball, he's gonna break one. Keep giving him the ball, he's gonna break one. Yeah, he would finally fucking break one. It was incredible. And people would like try to use that against him, like, oh, he only averaged 5 yards carry because he had that 70-yard. Like, yeah, no shit. That's how this works, dude. Like, that's what you're giving him the ball for. Why would you want him to stop after 5 yards?
Oh, someone we didn't mention, but he has not totally in the 2000s era, more the 2010s. Jamal Charles would thrive. Jamal Charles would absolutely light it up.
Oh yes,
in this era, he lit it up.
He did
actually lit it, and he would light it up here.
You know who I thought you were gonna say, because when you said that, it was a name that I popped up that I couldn't in good faith bring up because I think he was a rookie in 2009. Arian Foster in today's era,
Woo.
my fucking God.
Yeah, buddy.
You talk about like comparisons to CMC. I think that's a really good comp.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah,
similar
totally.
players. Smooth runners.
Really. Oh, smooth, like smoothest runner.
Yes.
Like never looked like he was going full speed. Like kind of like he actually, you know who he reminds me of? He reminds me Arian and Kamara remind me of each other.
Yeah.
Like I never actually I'm like, how come no one's catching Kamara? He's jogging. like young Kamara, that's how it also is like why is he just covered in like slime? Like why can nobody get their hands on him or catch this dude? And I kind of felt like that way about Arian as well.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like I have one more thought. I'm curious if you can sort of identify this moment for you, because to me, growing up, we all loved running backs. That was the premier position. Quarterback still won you things and defense and everything, but like that was what everyone wanted to be. When you created your Madden player, it was a running back 9 times out of 10, right? Like it's just what was the glamour position growing up. But I distinctly remember when I realized like it's just not the case anymore. It's not a thing. And it was when it was Jordan Howard. It was when they, you know, he was rushing for 1,200, 1,300 yards, but it still really wasn't making that big of an impact on games. Like the defenses were essentially like letting it happen. Like, cool, you want to keep running, do your thing, waste clock. Like we'll turn the ball over, we'll hold you to a field goal, and it is what it is. And even like the way, I guess like the cherry on top for me, outside of just watching it happen, because he's another guy that you throw him in the mid 2000s, you may look at him totally fucking different. You give that guy 30 carries a game, my God. But when the Bears traded him, I was like, okay, they could probably get like a third or maybe like something decent out of him. He's been productive. A team that he likes to run the ball. And mid 2000s, you're probably getting a fucking early second out of the guy. Like he was that productive. But it was like a conditional fifth. And it wasn't that I thought it was too little. It was just like, that's what people think of running backs now. Like that was to me like the kicker of like, it was, what was that, 2014, 2015? I was like, they don't give a fuck. Like it just, this is the running back now. It's, if you don't have a Christian McCaffrey, I don't know who like the guy was then off the top of my head, but if you don't have that guy, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I think the turning point for me was when like the numbers no longer showcased who was awesome. Like, and I mean this by looking at the receiver position. When dudes like Wes Welker are catching 100 balls a year and their numbers look better than like Chad Ochocinco's, and I'm just like, well, who would I rather have? It's like, oh, like it's easy to get receivers open. Like you can schematically get these dudes open. I think that was kind of like the turning point for me.
Yeah.
Where like it was just like, well, this is just so much easier. We don't need a guy super talented, and we can get production out of him like he's a Pro Bowler. At the receiver position. I think that was like kind of the moment for me. I was just like, well, fucking Wes Welker is like, he's not bad. He's not better than Larry Fitzgerald, but his numbers are showing it. Like, So like when the numbers are just so out of whack and out of balance about who the best really is, that's where it was like, oh shit. It's like, it must be really easy to get receivers open. Like I wouldn't run the ball either. Like,
yeah, no, 100%. That's a phenomenal point. I did want to end though, just with a quick guessing game. The year 2000, how many 1,000-yard runners were there?
18.
23.
Holy shit.
Yeah. 2023. How many 1,000-yard runners were there?
4.
12, but like 2 of them only 5 more. So 1, 2, 3, 4 of them were barely 1,000-yard runners. It was 1,015, 1,012, 1,008, 1,005.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
we talk
10 less.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Jeez.
it's insane. Again, I do think though, I think of it very similarly to like when Pat Riley in the NBA was like, all right, you guys are spacing and pacing. We're slowing this bitch down and bleeding clock and playing a half court offense, and like the 80s and 90s sort of assumed that position. I don't know if it'll be to that degree where like it's going to be a ton of running teams. I do think we're going to your point, like Mike Vrabel had done it. I think there's going to be a handful in the next 3 or 4 years that start to buck that trend a little bit to show like, all right, we're going to be physical and we're going to,
The Chiefs kind of zag that way, like maybe unintentionally or intentionally, like they didn't have the last 2 years, they have not had a like legit deep threat, and Mahomes and Pacheco and Mahomes kind of like navigating like they and themselves kind of zagged on everybody.
Yeah.
They just, like, and they won back-to-back Super Bowls doing it, like with an elite defense and just like clock management and like a play here and a play there. It's pretty crazy.
But it's also like, look at the name you just said, Isaiah Pacheco. No disrespect. Imagine him running up against Ray Lewis or Brian Urlacher, just in the middle. A halfback dive, holes open. Here come. I mean, some of these running backs would get fucking crushed.
Yeah.
It'd be nuts. Imagine Kyron Williams. He's 5'4".
Yeah.
Not that short means anything, but he's also just small. These guys are just like these guys are getting a little bit smaller for speed's sake everywhere. Because I feel the same way about the linebackers. Like, imagine Jamal Lewis going up against fucking, TJ Edmonds. It's Jamal. He would have a fucking field day against these linebackers, dude.
Truly,
Fred Warner may be the only guy.
Most of them. He'd be bigger than most of them. He'd just run their asses over.
Dude, I was looking at some of the sizes. Who was it? They were like bigger than what I remember. I think it was Clinton Portis was like fucking 235, 240.
He was a big dude. Do you remember the play where he knocked Urlacher out?
I do.
Like Urlacher's just waiting for him in the hole, and their heads just collide, and Urlacher just fucking faints.
Yes,
like,
I do remember that.
Oh my god!
I remember it live.
Oh boy, yeah, that was crazy. That was nuts.
Yeah.
But then I also remember Urlacher putting Steven Jackson on his ass.
I know.
Like, I mean, how many linebackers right now would be able to do that to Steven Jackson? Not be able to do it.
Not very many. I mean, that was the thing about, the era that we grew up in was a crapshoot. If it was one-on-one with the running back and the running back didn't sort of veer off and try to go out of bounds, it was a 50-50 play as to who was going to get laid out.
Right. Totally.
It was fun. Listen, this exercise was so fun for me, and I forgot how it exactly came up. I think I just me and Jack went on an episode, and I was like, oh, that running back underrated. And I was like, you know what we should do? Do like a mid-2000s and like just rank them or whatever. And again, I couldn't rank them. It was very hard for me because I was like, as I was going over my head, there were some guys who were worse in my head. Like, I don't know why I thought Brian Westbrook had like multiple 1,500-yard seasons. He was a very good player, but you sort of compare what your mind remembers to like the actual stats, and I was like, oh, maybe that guy wasn't as good. Even though I do think he'd be phenomenal in this era, but this is very fun, Naz.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun, dude. We gotta do more things like this. Totally in.
Yeah, I mean, we have still 2 months until the preseason, so we could do a bunch of dumb shit like this. Yeah, and I mean, just talk about like safety. Yeah. Safeties don't matter anymore either. Maybe we just talk about the guys that we grew up on, the safeties that we love.
Talk about 90s point guards. I don't know.
We could do that too. We could fucking do it. I'm all in.
All right,
Naz. Any final thoughts?
This Aaron Rodgers deal, this whole story has just been so fun. I'm just like, I love that the Jets are just a fucking dumpster fire.
I know.
This is like, everything's right with the world.
I know. It couldn't have happened to a more, like, it's a fit. It's a perfect fit.
Truly.
It's phenomenal. All right, Naz, thanks for partaking in this with me. I had a ton of fun. Yeah, and we can continue to be creative. I know we have some like super bear-centric stuff that are coming down the pipeline, but yeah, if we can just come up with little dumb exercises like this, I have so much fun doing this type of stuff. So I hope y'all enjoyed it as well. Remember to like, share, subscribe. We're everywhere that podcasts can be heard. The video portion is on YouTube and YouTube only. So if you want to stare at us while we're talking, you can do that as well. All right, Nas. Later, man.
All right, dude. Take it easy.